Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Show podcast. Today, we are excited to have Jamie Griffin join us. Jamie is not just a restaurant growth strategist and advisor, he's a craftsman of strategy and innovation, having been instrumental in scaling Raising Cane's from a budding chain into a powerhouse enterprise. Jamie, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's absolutely a joy to have you on the show with us today. Listen, before we jump into all the ways you can help restaurants scale and grow, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the most important thing for me to say is that I grew up in deep South Louisiana, not far from New Orleans, Louisiana. And I think hospitality was in my DNA. I joke all the time that I have a mom who will cook for 100 people when there's 6 people in the house. And I'm like, who is going to eat all of this food? And then by the end of the day, it's all gone. So my roots in hospitality start watching my mom feed the community, our family, the neighborhood, etc. And in college I was lucky enough to get a job like a lot of college students. I needed a little bit of extra money, and I really stumbled into working for this company called Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers when they had 9 restaurants, and really thought it was a means to pay my cell phone bill and my rent. And 22 years later, the restaurant industry, hospitality is all a big part of my DNA. And in the consulting work you just mentioned, it's exclusively what I do. When I do my growth strategy consulting, it's 100% with restaurant companies.
Oh, that sounds very fitting to this show.
So fitting.
Very,
Good
very
name, guys.
appropriate.
Yes.
Love it, love it. So speaking of that and what is the center or has been the center of the restaurant industry forever, Jamie, from your experience, how have advanced POS systems changed operational efficiencies in the restaurants you've worked with?
It's a really good question. I had to I have to think like how much has it changed? And like I remember the days when you take an order on a pad and clip it to a line and sling it to the back of the house. And then I was thinking about those point of sale systems. You press those flat buttons on and all they did was calculate the transaction and give you a summary report at the end of the day. And I think the number one way point of sale systems have changed the way we operate for the better is communication. Communication between the back of house and front of house in whatever version you're doing it, whether it's with CHIT or KDS. I think the communication with third parties, just think about how much communication's happening from and to third party delivery companies and providers and other people. Integration with the payroll and financial reporting. I mean, just generating checks. I mean, even calculating tips. A lot of that stuff is starting to happen within the point of sale system or an adjacent system. And communication has expedited exponentially in a way that's really helpful, and given us real-time data on something, on a business that is transaction by transaction. I grew up in a world where it's like 2 shifts make a good day, 7 good days make a good week, and 4 good weeks make a good period. Now we get to look at everything at the transaction level, the day or the moment it's happening. Every day I wake up and look at reports that are informative to how we're going to lead and guide a business that can change overnight.
I think that leads directly into my next question. With all of these improved operational efficiencies and the communication that has been greatly affected over the years, the next is analytics, right? Can you talk about a specific instance where data and analytics have led to a significant pivot or enhancement in one of the restaurants you've been working with or in a strategy that you've deployed?
Yeah, I think the reality, but the gift, the blessing and the curse is that these systems throw out a tremendous amount of data, and without doing some analysis on that data and driving them into dashboards that turn into action, it's hard to lead. I maybe two specific examples. One is like I'm so impressed with these younger emerging restaurant companies and how rapidly they put together dashboards that help them make decisions. I remember when you would get your financial report 20, 30 days after you closed the period and you tried to figure out what to do next with the business. And now we're able to sit in a meeting, and if we have a transaction or data level question, answer it by looking at Power BI or Google Studio or whatever tool you're using. But to get maybe more specific, I operate with a lot of seasonal businesses. New Orleans, Charleston, New York are all very seasonal places. And in those places, leveraging up and leveraging down is really important. Meaning, when sales are growing, we need to very carefully manage the supply and the labor in the building to serve those customers and give them a great experience. And when we're coming out of the sales, we have to really thoughtfully not give away money by keeping the schedule the same, et cetera. And I've seen analytics make a huge difference in understanding that, like what is the ramp going to look like and how do we come off that seasonal sales ramp? And then how do we get as much of the customer's money as we can when we're in the money? And then how do we not give it away on accident by over ordering product or over laboring the restaurant? So that's a place that I think I've seen just real money be produced for operators and them thoughtfully serve their customers and their team.
Interesting. I'm just curious if, for years experience a huge reluctance about CRM just because it's more of a thing that you sit down and it takes time and operators usually don't have any time.
Mm.
What role do you think CRM systems play in maintaining and enhancing customer loyalty in the restaurant?
Yeah, so if we like pivot from this data and analysis about the transaction and pivot it over to customer data, I'm super fascinated by it. I mean, most of the companies I'm working with are emerging and growing, right? My company's called Consult to Grow. We're all about growing restaurant companies. A big part of that is growing transaction and top line sales. And I think traffic has been a topic for restaurateurs right now, and loyalty, CRM, et cetera, is coming into play. I think when you talk customer relationship manager in our business, you really have to look at a stack of a few things: point of sale data, third party data, digital ordering flash, and then loyalty. And what's been really interesting to see is people were hot and cold on loyalty for a while. With traffic being down, people were suddenly more into it. But the group of people in the industry who are most into loyalty data are actually the private equity companies. And I think that's very informative. Meaning, when a private equity company is deciding what your company is worth, they start looking at your loyalty data and the data you have. And I think loyalty is like level one, and building and maintaining a relationship with a customer and your brand that is predictable in nature, that gives us a lifetime value, is both the right thing to do for the business and in the best interest of shareholder value. And so I think you got to get that tech stack right. I think you got to be thoughtful about it. I think that tech is more accessible than it ever has been. And I think it's really meaningful for owners, the investors and owners of the business, and also the people who are managing those relationships on the front line.
I kind of want to stick with loyalty for a second here. It's always a topic of discussion on this show. We recently had Matt Smolin, who is the CEO and founder of Hang.com, which is a really progressive artificial intelligence driven loyalty program. And he was claiming that loyalty programs are really sort of missing the mark, and they really aren't driving loyalty. They're just kind of spinning their wheels, so to speak. What's your take on the state of loyalty programs today in the restaurant industry, and do you find them to be effective?
I'm going to make a real broad statement. I think anybody who says anything in our business is a panacea and will solve all your problems is lying to you on accident or on purpose. And I think loyalty programs kind of fall into that trap. Like, it's going to fix traffic. I think that people who get on loyalty programs with a short-term goal of driving traffic and frequency will experience short-term traffic and frequency increases and will likely see a decline from there. I think anything that's worth doing is worth doing right and for the long term. And I think when you look at the most admired companies in the world, Walmart has their Walmart Plus program. Nordstrom has Nordy Club. The most admired companies in the world have loyalty programs. And I don't think they're going, oh, we're just going to get somebody to buy an extra thing. I think they're saying there's so much data here. There's so much richness to this data. And we can take that data and make some meaningful decisions about the direction of our brand to build value. So I think you've just got to, like, that's why I said, look at the whole tech stack of it and be really thoughtful and long term. I think there are a lot of people who are happy to give you a loyalty program that is level one, but that shouldn't be the goal. The goal has got to be to see it through in the greater framework of how do I create a greater lifetime value of my customer? Yeah. How do I do fun stuff for the customer? Like, it's not just points. When you look at Chick-fil-A or one of the groups I work with, Velvet Taco, they're doing surprise and delight stuff to really create brand ambassadors. They're taking their top 5 customers and inviting them in to have these unique experiences. And so that's like a level of experience I think you have to get to. And then I think you actually have to do something with the data. And the problem is, and you guys probably experienced this with dynamic pricing, there's too much data. Like, 75% of it says something about something I can't change. 25% of it's useful, but the most useful data is how can I take this and make it informative about the future, which is something I can change. That
Bingo.
was a little bit of a rant. So
No. But I
back.
think it was fantastic because part of what Hank does is actually this gamification of the loyalty experience as a program, and it to the point that it's personalized to what is your favorite gamification themes, kind of totally. And the other thing that I love that you keep mentioning is the lifetime value. It is so important, and lifetime value is what helps project the value of a company. So that makes sense that when it comes to stock market and the big companies that or even smaller. I mean, even if you were to sell your business and you have that solid understanding of the lifetime value of your customers, it just you're selling the brand with all the other things. Like if it was a big sale of a big company.
No doubt, like two good examples that support what you're saying, Jose, is I think during COVID, I think it was Delta Airlines, but one of the airlines had a mortgage against their loyalty program. They valued their loyalty program at $20 billion and took out a $5 billion loan. And then Albertsons, this huge grocery chain in America, again around the same time, was going public or doing a public change, and in their 10K, they made specific notes of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of records they had about their customers between grocery and pharmacy that was informative to the value of their business. And then if you just look at the state of the world, interest rates are higher, restaurant industry investments are riskier. No private equity company or investor wants to make a risky investment. So if you can show them that consistency in your relationship with your customer, and relationship, not transaction, you can help them feel like they're making a de-risked investment. Like, I feel more confident in your ability to do this again and again.
I just think there is this sandbox that, you were talking about, not just transactional, like not just getting them to, buy that extra side order of fries, but what can we get them to do, or what can we get them to interact with or engage with? And you have this loyalty program that should be, based online, in the cloud, and you have the opportunity to experiment and decide what are you getting a reaction from, and all the different ways that you can play around and show data and see, listen, we've got this customer base, and they're really reacting well to this type of a promotion, or even this type of content. There's a lot of different things that can be done in that space without taking off the blinders and just trying to upsell. I think there's a lot of potential for loyalty programs, and we love Hang.com, their whole premise and their approach to loyalty. I think they're really bucking the trend. Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Hang, really cool company, and they're doing some amazing things too. So I just want to shift gears a little bit here, Jamie, into employment management software. Look, retention is really important nowadays with the labor shortage and the happiness of the average hospitality worker. How have tools for scheduling and workforce management impacted staff performance and satisfaction in projects that you've seen?
Yeah, this is a area of passion for me. I was the head of HR for Raising Cane's when I left. We had 15, 20,000 employees, 400 restaurants, and I took it. I'm a single guy with no kids, and I felt like every one of those employees were part of my family, and I wanted to take care of them in that way. This is a place where I think communication has been supplementally beneficial, meaning when I think of what applicant tracking systems have done for recruiting, learning management systems have done for learning, onboarding systems have done to like reduce the paperwork and all of the 3 hours you used to sit filling out paperwork in a restaurant somewhere, where we would get half of it wrong because we didn't know how to fill it out. I think that in those places, technology has done a good job. I think communication for scheduling, tech has done a good job, meaning like I'm on my schedule, I know when my schedule is, I can change my schedule, etc. I'm just going to be super honest and say I don't think that technology has done anything to help performance, and I don't think it's done anything to help satisfaction. We know satisfaction hasn't changed dramatically. It got a little better in the midst of COVID. when there was, an exit of people from the workforce,
Mm.
but we're right back to where we were before, and it hasn't changed materially. I think the tech should make life easier. I think it's supplemental. I saw your interview with the COO of Kura. I'm very in line with that way of seeing it. Like, how do we get better customer and employee experiences using the tech as a supplement?
Hmm.
But
Right.
if I had to like make the case to everybody listening to this podcast for what I think would move the needle on employee performance and satisfaction, I'd really push for we need to do a better job giving leaders, shift leaders, managers, multi-unit leaders, soft skill development to deal with the real world issues they're dealing with. One of your guests talked about mental health a few weeks ago. That is a huge issue that no technology is going to help us solve. In fact, it's kind of making some of the situation worse, and everybody's life is influenced by the managers leading the shift and how they coach and mentor and how they handle difficult conversations and difficult people. And so, I'd love to say it's made our lives way better. I think administratively it has, but I think from a performance and a satisfaction level, we need to focus on upskilling the managers who are in our ranks and coming into our ranks.
Shout out to
You got,
Jason E. Brooks. He's a regular on the show.
yeah.
We love Jason, and he is he's coming on the scene at just the right time and just the right moment, with the right message about, every leader needs followers is his book that he just wrote. I think I have it on my desk here.
Yeah.
Let me just shout out Jason's book here. Here we go. There we go, guys.
There you go. Yeah.
I
No,
love Jason and his message. So go ahead,
no,
Jose.
it's really really powerful what he says, and it is just exactly that, fills that void of what that you're talking about, where it's like it doesn't matter how small you think your business is, build a culture and a succession plan and an inspiration that of what the possibilities are as an employee, so that you can actually have people that are satisfied, which translates into better performance, happiness, satisfaction, supports not mental illness, but the healing of the mental challenges that mental health that are faced in the industry. So now this is a question that we just talked about: tech and not tech, right? So we know that there's a human element that we should never forget about, and that is the part that it's so much about the employee. Just take care, right? Care for them. Now, on the tech side, do you have an example of a technological solution that helped a restaurant overcome a major growth hurdle?
Yeah, look, I do growth all day, every day, and pretty much exclusively work with restaurant founders, though there are some exceptions. Um, to answer this question is to say that growth equals destruction. So to grow, we actually have to change things, and humans don't love to change. So I just kind of say that out of the gate. Um, I'd say that out of the gate. Every restaurateur who has multiple units is solving the Houdini problem, is what I call it, meaning you can't be in two places at once. When I ask a restaurateur, what was the hardest restaurant you ever opened? They always say number two. You always think it's number one, but number one, you don't know what you're doing. And number two, you realize part of the magic was you were in that restaurant. So I would say, as a growth strategist and somebody who's working with people that need to get clear about their vision and share it with their team so that they're clear and aligned, that need to get the right team members in the right place to grow their business, and to have a game plan. Honestly, like, communication tools are key, like we've evolved. We have Zoom, we have, Outlook and email. We have all these management tools like Asana and Monday.com and Trello. So it's kind of boring to say that those are the things that have led to explosive growth, but the things that lead to clarity and alignment among the team so that everybody's moving in the same direction are going to be the things that help growth the most. If you want like a fun answer to that question, Placer AI and like eSite are wildly cool compared to what we used to have to do to predict whether or not a site was going to be good in growing a business. And so those would be my two answers, maybe like a K there, like one going this way and one going that way. Communication fundamentally has been the best thing that technology has done for growing businesses. De-risking site selection, where we can now use cell phone data and all of these data aggregate sources to figure out who's in our restaurant and where they're coming from and where they're going, to de-risk buying a piece of land or leasing it and then building a building has been the most helpful.
Wow.
Ooh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
That wasn't a part of your growth strategy, Jose.
No, I've just gotten enlightened. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Well, this is why we do this show, is because we learn new things at least a couple of times a week,
Indeed,
mostly
indeed.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. It's materially helpful where those tools work a little less well. It's like I do work with clients in New York, and all the humans are stacked on top of each other, so it's less helpful for our folks in high density urban areas. But for folks growing in more traditional real estate in the U.S. at least, having access to understanding the customer data, and then they tie it into the POS. And they start looking at their spending habits, and then they can build a model for you of like how much every archetype is worth to you and how far they're willing to drive to you to spend money with you. It's
Yeah,
very
that's
cool technology.
yeah, that's
Cool.
really, really well said. I kind of want to stick with growth using tech. What's your opinion though on, let's say, overcomplicated tech stacks where there certain professionals are sort of dangling the shiny object in front of you? This is going to do this for you, this is going to do that for you. Do you find that chains in particular are using too many different types of tech that are making things complicated and hurting growth?
Hmm. Fundamental belief is hot food hot, cold food cold. I think that a lot of things distract people from running a restaurant very well to drive sales and profit. I think that everybody who's buying a piece of technology should realize that the solution of today is the problem of tomorrow. Everything you think is solving a problem will break another thing. I think fewer pieces of technology are better, and I think the access to good technology has never been more accessible. So I think it's something that you have to give some thought to, and you should be reaching out to someone, not me, but somebody who's got wisdom about that technology and how it works with each other, in a way to build it. And the companies who do a great job of this have like some kind of mentor or consultant guiding, probably a young genius, quite honestly, who's putting all this tech together to make it work. The big companies already know this. They already know fewer pieces of good software is better than a lot of stuff creating a Frankenstein.
So speaking of restaurant technology, I want to get you. Listen, this is been a hot topic for over a year now. It's in all of the trade shows. I want to get your opinion on dynamic pricing. I've got a question written out here, but we talked, before we started recording, we talked a little bit about dynamic pricing and how you feel about it and your thoughts on it. But why don't you share with our listeners what your opinion is on dynamic pricing and this new technology?
Yeah, look, I'm a huge fan. I think the industry looks onto itself to grow way too much. And so if you look outside the industry at what airlines are doing, hotels are doing, transportation companies like Uber are doing, electricity here in Texas, we have this weird system. It costs more for electricity during certain parts of days, and we have a whole thing going on. All of those industries have figured out that customers are fine with dynamic pricing. I think that it is hard for us to, in some ways, it's hard for us to wrap our mind around, but in reality, we do it already. We have lunch pricing and dinner pricing. We have happy hour pricing. We have special event pricing. Like if I know a huge event's in town, I'm going to put premium. We have limited time offers that are mixing people around to margin improved items. So I think it's a matter of time, just like when we thought no one would ever, order online or get food delivered 10, 15 years ago. I think, 5, 10 years from now, we're going to realize it's just a part of everyday life and business, and that there's no need to leave that money on the table because if we don't, our competitor will go get it using dynamic pricing. We just have to make it work for the operators.
Right.
Yeah, that
Right.
really well said. I mean, when it comes down to it, push comes to shove, this is revenue management, and you need to look at your pricing and your revenue very, very closely. And from our experience, a lot of restaurateurs are not looking at their pricing close enough. And I think, you hit the nail on the head by saying that they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Jose?
No, just want to say that it ties to what you were also saying of the data, the amounts of data that are out there that it's just misused or unused completely. And I think that dynamic pricing has the potential to make it simpler, easier, and actionable for the operator.
Mm. Yeah, look, I agree, Jose, and really would add I think there's a fear part and an emotional part. When I talk to clients about pricing, they're afraid to be too expensive. They have beliefs about price other places. And I think that the thing data transparency and tools around dynamic pricing can do, much like we've seen with generative AI, is take the emotion out of it and go, this is what the price should be. Like, don't relax for a second and trust that data transparency and looking at all of these variables is going to get you an unemotional, right and best answer and see how it works for you. Because right now, you're guessing or making a choice based on fear. And when your profit's lower than your competitor, you're embarrassed to talk about it. I mean, it really is a very emotional topic. And I think if we could take emotion out of it and focus on data, our lives would be better and our margins would be better.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have for this episode. Jamie, now's your time to plug away. Where can operators connect with you? What is your platform of choice?
Perfect. Look, consult2grow.com is my website. Anybody can reach out to me at jamie@consult2grow.com or follow me on LinkedIn. Any platform is going to be Jamie J. Griffin. And I look forward to the engagement. I welcome any conversation from any operator. I'm always happy to chat and help when I can.
Speaking of plugs, this podcast is sponsored by Dine Pricing, real-time restaurant profitability. Dine Pricing uses artificial intelligence to improve restaurant profitability by dynamically updating menus across digital channels like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. That's all the time we have for this episode today. Thanks again to Jamie for joining us. Until next week, say goodbye, Jose.
Goodbye, Jose. Let's grow.
Way to throw back. That was a good throwback. Jamie, thank you so much, man.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the opportunity today. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was the questions were very thought-provoking and the conversation was fun for me too. So thank you for the opportunity.
That's
Thank
great,
you.
Jamie. Would
Thank
love to
you.
have you back on the show in the near future.
Perfect. All right, guys, have an
Thank
amazing
you.
day.